today's instructional video, we're going to go over the last of the 4-note chords, the so-called diminished seventh. I'm going to teach it two ways, so that you get a thorough understanding of how to build this chord. We're going to go through how to build it first, and then I'm going to show you a little trick as to how to memorize the diminished sevenths in a very easy, practical way. Alright, so here's the drill. This is drill number 12, the final 4-note chord drill. Okay? Diminished, diminished 7. We start out with C diminished, which we know is lowering the third and the fifth of a triad, a major triad. So C diminished triad, and now the diminished 7th tone is 1.5 steps below 8. So here's 8, major 7, lowered 7, diminished 7. Also the same note as the 6, but you will never, ever see C diminished 6. Okay? It's technically B flat and a flat again, B double flat. So technically they should write this note as B double flat, and that therefore it's a diminished 7th. So what you need to know is that we have C diminished triad, picture the 8, picture the 8, major 7th tone, lowered 7th tone, diminished 7th tone. Okay? So basically you have 3 7th tones. You have the major 7, which is a half step below 8. You have the lowered 7, which is a half step lower than the major 7. And you have the diminished 7, which is a whole step below the major 7, or 1.5 steps below 8. Let's think 1.5 below 8, because we've been using 8 as a reference. So C diminished triad, picture the 8, come down 1.5 steps, C diminished 7. F diminished triad, picture the 8, come down 1.5 steps, or 3.5 steps, either way, F diminished 7. G diminished, come down 3.5 steps, D diminished 7. D diminished, D diminished 7, E diminished, E diminished 7, A diminished, A diminished 7, D flat diminished, D flat diminished 7, E flat diminished, E flat diminished 7, A flat diminished 7, F sharp diminished 7, B diminished 7, and B flat diminished 1, 2, 3 half steps, B flat diminished 7. Okay? So that's the way you form the chords. You should understand all the components. Root, minor third, diminished fifth, right? So my normal 5, diminished fifth, and diminished 7th. Right? 8, major 7, lowered 7, diminished 7. Okay, let's do that with C. Again, the components of a diminished 7. Root, minor third, diminished fifth. Anytime you lower a fifth, a half step is called diminished. And then the diminished 7th, 1.5 steps below 8. Okay? So practice those diminished 7ths in that order, and also that way of thinking about them. Now, the cool thing about diminished 7ths is that if we have a C diminished 7, and we invert that, in other words, put the bottom note C on top, keep the others the same, we actually get E flat diminished 7. So here's C diminished 7, put the bottom note on top, up an octave, right, C up an octave, now we have E flat diminished 7. If we do the same process, take the bottom note, put that E flat on top of these 3 notes, we get F sharp diminished 7. And again, the bottom note on top, we get A diminished 7. Put the bottom note on top, going back to our C diminished 7. Okay, so basically, this is another way to practice the diminished 7ths perhaps more efficiently, because if you can memorize the lick of C diminished 7, then you just invert it, alright, and that gives you the other 3. So basically, C diminished 7 equals E flat diminished 7, equals F sharp diminished 7, equals A diminished 7, equals C diminished 7, equals A diminished 7, equals F sharp diminished 7, equals E flat diminished 7, equals C diminished 7. So you want to say that out loud as a reminder that, wow, this is really just the same chord being inverted. Okay? You might want to write that out as well. C diminished 7, C little circle 7, equal sign, E flat, little circle 7, equal sign, F sharp diminished 7 equals A diminished 7. Alright, so that's the first set of 4. Practice that left hand alone. Begin to really visualize that chord. It's a much more efficient way to practice your diminished 7ths rather than thinking, here's my diminished triad, where's the diminished 7? No, just picture the C and picture the inversions thereof. A little side note, so basically C diminished 7 equals E flat diminished 7. There is no C diminished 7 first inversion. It's really a whole new chord. You'll never see C diminished 7 first inversion. It's really a whole new chord. It's E flat diminished 7. So whatever the bottom note is of the diminished chord, that's the name, E flat diminished 7, F sharp diminished 7, A diminished 7, C. Okay? So that's the first set of 4. The beauty of teaching them and learning them this way is there's really only going to be 3 sets. 3 sets of 4. And that's going to cover all 12, right? 3 times 4, all 12 diminished 7th chords. So here's my D flat diminished 7, and then we're going to invert that, which becomes E diminished 7, which equals G diminished 7, which equals B flat diminished 7, which equals D flat diminished 7. That's where we started, so we go back down. Alright, so that's the second set of 4. D flat diminished, write this down, D flat diminished 7 equals E diminished 7, equals G diminished 7, equals B flat diminished 7. Okay, so the drill is basically go up and down 1 octave, really seeing the chord. So that's the second set of 4, and the final set of 4 diminished 7ths is beginning on D diminished 7 equals F diminished 7 equals A flat diminished 7 equals B diminished 7 equals D diminished 7. Right? And that's this last set of 4. So I would highly recommend to do them in the left hand alone, saying them C diminished 7 equals E flat diminished 7 equals G flat diminished 7 equals A. Right? Just go through these, and I won't say them necessarily because I'll save some time on the video. So D flat diminished 7 equals E diminished 7, right? Etc. And the last set, D diminished 7 equals F, etc. Okay, I would highly recommend doing that same drill but in the right hand. D flat 7 and D. That is a real good acid test. Do them in both hands together, and you really will begin to see this chord. Okay, I always tell my students you need to practice this diminished 7th drill because you get just enough diminished 7ths in songs to aggravate you, frustrate you, and make you feel like quitting, but not enough to master them. So you really need to be practicing this drill. So it becomes second nature, right? One other quick point. The diminished 7th chord is the only chord that's equidistant. So from each note to the next note is 1.5 steps, right? 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Okay? So practice your diminished 7ths. Left hand alone, up and down an octave. Right hand alone, up and down an octave. And hands together, up and down an octave. Okay? That completes all of our closed position chords. We have 5 types of triads, and we have 7 different types of 4-note chords. Okay? So practice hard, and if you'd like to view some more free instructional videos, just go to my website, pianoweb.com or jazzpianoworld.com. Click on the YouTube icon, and you will link over to my YouTube channel, where I have 30 or so instructional, free for the viewing, instructional videos. If you'd like to listen to some audio instructional podcasts, just go to either website, pianoweb.com or jazzpianoworld.com. Click on the drop-down menu titled Podcasts, and I have 10 or 12 free for the listening instructional audio podcasts for you. Practice hard and get all of your 4-note chords down, and you'll be on your way. Fun.